They told her she would never dance again. They said her body was too broken, her spirit too shattered. But when the Alpha King watched her move across that banquet floor, something ancient and inevitable clicked into place, and the most powerful wolf in existence fell to his knees. The rain never stops in the Mistwood Hollows. It's a constant, dreary companion that turns the ground into thick, sucking mud and makes every step feel like a battle. Sable pulls her tattered shawl tighter around her thin shoulders, but it does nothing to keep out the damp that has seeped into her very marrow. The cottage she lives in, if it can even be called that, is more of a lean-to, cobbled together from discarded timber and moss-covered stones. The roof leaks in 3 places. She has clay pots positioned to catch the drips, and their rhythmic plink, plink, plink is the soundtrack to her existence. She is 23 years old, and she feels ancient. Sable is an omega, born under the spring moon with a gift that should have made her treasured. Omegas in the Mistwood pack are dancers, living embodiments of grace and fluidity. Their movements during the sacred moon ceremonies bind the pack together, their bodies channeling the pack's energy, translating raw emotion into physical poetry. A skilled Omega dancer can calm territorial disputes, ease tensions, bring healing to fractured bonds. They are sacred, revered. She was supposed to be one of them. The scar runs from her left hip down to her knee, a thick, ropey thing that pulls her skin tight with every step. It throbs on cold days, which is every day in the Hollows. The injury happened when she was 17, just before her bonding ceremony with Garrett, the pack's head enforcer. They had been climbing the Widow's Ridge together, a tradition for newly promised pairs. She had been laughing, drunk on young love and the future stretching golden before them. Then the rocks gave way. The fall shattered her femur in 3 places. The pack healer did what she could, but the bone healed crooked. Sable's left leg is now slightly shorter than her right, her gait forever uneven. She limps. For anyone else, it would be an inconvenience. For an Omega dancer, it was a death sentence. Garrett stayed with her through the recovery, his jaw tight, his eyes growing more distant with each failed attempt she made to dance. She tried. Gods, how she tried. But her body would not obey. Where there should have been fluid grace, there was only jerking, stuttering movement. Her balance was gone. The pain made her gasp and stumble. The other Omegas whispered behind their hands. The pack elders shook their heads in pity. On the night of the harvest moon, 6 months after her fall, Garrett performed the rite of dissolution in front of the entire pack. He stood before her, his face carved from stone, and spoke the ancient words that severed their bond. "You are incomplete," he said, his voice echoing in the ceremonial circle. "I release you from your promise. I release you from this pack's expectations. You are unbound." The pain of a broken bond is said to be worse than physical death. Sable believes it. Something inside her shattered that night, something that never healed. The shame was unbearable. She couldn't meet anyone's eyes, couldn't stand the pity, the relief on their faces that it wasn't them, that they weren't the broken one. So she left the main village and came here, to the very edge of the territory, where the mist is so thick you can barely see your hand in front of your face, where no one has to look at her failure, where she can disappear. She survives by weaving baskets from the marsh reeds and leaving them at the edge of the village before dawn. Someone, she never knows who, leaves a few coins or a loaf of bread in exchange. She speaks to no one. No one speaks to her. She is a ghost, a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly fortune can turn. The rain continues to fall. Sable sits on her creaking cot, rubbing her aching leg, and tries not to remember what it felt like to dance. The memories come whether she wants them or not, especially on nights like this when the pain in her leg makes sleep impossible. Sable lies on her thin mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling, and lets herself remember when she was whole. She had been gifted. Everyone said so. From the time she could walk, her body moved with an otherworldly fluidity. Her mother, Mora, had been a renowned Omega dancer in her time, and she recognized the signs immediately. By age 5, Sable was already learning the basic forms. By 10, she was outperforming Omegas twice her age. By 15, the pack elders were calling her a once-in-a-generation talent. The dance of the Omegas wasn't like human dancing. It was deeper, primal, connected to the wolf spirit that lived inside them all. When Sable danced, her eyes would shift to her wolf's amber, her movements becoming something beyond human capability. Spine curving in ways that should have been impossible, body flowing like water over stone. She could feel the pack's energy, their emotions, their bonds, and she could weave them together with her movement. She was a living thread stitching the community into something stronger than its individual parts. Garrett had noticed her during the Spring Awakening Festival when she was 16. He was 22, already marked for leadership, strong and handsome with dark copper hair and eyes like green glass. When he approached her after her performance, she felt like her heart would burst from her chest. He courted her properly, with the old traditions, bringing gifts to her mother, walking with her through the sacred grove, learning her favorite flowers. When he asked her to be his mate, to bind their lives together, she had said yes without hesitation. She loved him. She loved the future she saw in his eyes. They would be a powerful pair, the enforcer and the sacred dancer. Their children would be blessed. Their lives would be full of purpose and belonging. The Widow's Ridge climb was supposed to seal their bond, a private ceremony between promised mates. The ridge was sacred ground where the pack's founders had first claimed this territory. Couples who reached the summit together were said to have the moon's blessing. She remembers the exact moment it happened. They were 3/4 of the way up, laughing about something. She can't even remember what now. Garrett was ahead of her, reaching back to help her over a tricky outcropping. She took his hand, placed her foot on what looked like solid rock, and felt the world drop away beneath her. The fall lasted only seconds, but it felt like hours. She remembers the rush of air, the sensation of weightlessness, Garrett's shout of horror, then the impact, a white-hot explosion of agony that turned her vision to static. She remembers screaming. She remembers the wrongness of her leg, the way it bent at an angle that made her stomach heave. She remembers Garrett's face above her, pale with shock, as he howled for help. The pack healer, Miriam, did everything she could. She set the bone, splinted the leg, gave Sable herbs for the pain that made her float in and out of consciousness for days. But the damage was too severe. When the splints finally came off 3 months later and Sable tried to stand, she nearly collapsed. Her left leg wouldn't bear weight properly. It was shorter now, the bone having healed slightly compressed. Her hip ached with a deep grinding pain. Her knee was stiff, wouldn't bend fully. "You'll walk," Miriam had said, not quite meeting her eyes. "In time, it will get easier." "But dancing?" She trailed off, the silence saying everything. Sable tried anyway. Gods, she tried. She forced herself through the basic forms, tears streaming down her face as her body refused to cooperate. Where there had once been effortless grace, now there was only struggling, lurching movement. She couldn't balance on her left leg, couldn't execute the spins, couldn't drop into the low, flowing movements that were essential to omega dancing. Every attempt ended with her on the floor, gasping in pain, her inadequacy on full display. Garrett watched these attempts with growing horror and something worse, disgust. She could see it in his eyes, the way he looked at her now, not as his beautiful, gifted mate, but as something broken, something defective, an embarrassment. "Maybe if you just rested more," he would say, his voice tight. "Maybe if you tried harder." But they both knew the truth. She would never dance again. Not the way she had. Not the way an omega was supposed to. And Garrett, who had chosen her in part for her gift, for the status it would bring him, could not accept being tied to a failure. The rite of dissolution came 6 months after her fall. The elders tried to talk him out of it, reminding him that bonds were sacred, that she had been injured through no fault of her own. But Garrett was within his rights. An omega who couldn't fulfill their sacred duty could be released. It was in the old laws. The ceremony was torture. The entire pack gathered in the ceremonial circle, their faces illuminated by the ring of torches. Sable stood in the center, her bad leg trembling with the effort of staying upright, trying to hold on to the last shreds of her dignity. Garrett spoke the words of dissolution, his voice flat and formal. He pressed his palm to her heart, and she felt the bond between them, that golden thread that had connected their souls, snap like a rotten rope. The pain dropped her to her knees. She heard someone crying and realized dimly that it was her. The pack members looked away, unable to watch her grief. Only Garrett remained stone-faced, impassive. "You are incomplete," he said, the final ritual words. "I release you." He turned and walked away, and she never spoke to him again. The pounding on her door comes just after dawn, violent enough to rattle the flimsy wooden frame. Sable jerks awake from a fitful sleep, her heart hammering. No one comes here. No one ever comes here. "Open up!" The voice is male, gruff, impatient. She recognizes it. Dax, one of the pack's border guards. "Alpha's orders. Open the door now, Sable, or I'm coming through it." She stumbles from her cot, her bad leg stiff from the cold and lack of movement. She's wearing the same rough-spun dress she's worn for 3 days. Her hair is a tangled mess. She doesn't care. What does it matter what she looks like? When she unlatches the door, Dax barely glances at her. His nose wrinkles slightly. Her cottage probably smells of mildew and stale air. But he delivers his message with clipped efficiency. "The Alpha King arrives tonight. Alpha Rowan has commanded that every pack member attend the banquet at the Great Lodge. No exceptions. That includes you." Sable's blood runs cold. "The Alpha King? Valdis Stormcrown?" Dax says, and there's an edge of fear in his voice that makes her skin prickle. "Supreme Alpha of the Northern Territories. He's touring the packs, assessing their strength and loyalty. Every member must be present. Alpha's orders. The name Valdis Stormcrown is spoken in whispers, usually followed by prayers. He's a legend, a nightmare, a force of nature. They say he's descended from the first wolves, that he can command 1,000 packs with a single howl, that his wolf form is massive and pale as death. They say he's been alive for over 200 years, kept immortal by some ancient magic. They say he's coming to judge them all. I can't, Sable whispers. The thought of entering the Great Lodge, of being surrounded by the pack that cast her out, of facing Garrett and his new mate, it's too much. Please, I haven't been to the village in years. They don't want me there. Dax's expression hardens. It's not a request. It's a command from Alpha Rowan, every member. If you refuse, you'll be considered a deserter, and you know the penalty for that. Death. The penalty for desertion is death. The king's representative was very specific. Dax continues, his voice dropping slightly. He wants to assess the full pack. Every member, if even one is missing when they take their count, it's seen as disrespect. And disrespecting the Alpha King. He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't have to. Sable's hands are shaking. When? Tonight. Sunset. Be at the Great Lodge before the king arrives, or face the consequences. He turns to leave, then pauses. And Sable? Try to make yourself presentable. This isn't some village gathering. This is the Alpha King. Don't shame the pack more than you already have. The words are a knife between her ribs. He walks away, leaving her standing in the doorway, the morning mist swirling around her feet like cold fingers. She should refuse, should let them come for her. Death might be kinder than what awaits her tonight. The stares, the whispers, the pity mixed with contempt. Garrett will be there. His new mate, a beautiful Omega named Thalia, will be there. All the wolves who watched her fail, who watched her be discarded, will be there. But the instinct for survival is stronger than pride. She's not ready to die. Not yet. Sable spends the day in a fog of anxiety. She has no proper clothes. Everything she owns is rough and worn, suitable for a hermit, but not for a royal banquet. She does what she can, washes herself in the cold water from the rain barrel, combs the tangles from her dark hair, digs out her least patched dress, a deep forest green that used to fit her properly, but now hangs loose on her thin frame. She stares at herself in the cracked piece of mirror she keeps for no reason she can name. The woman looking back is a stranger. Hollow cheeks, dark circles under gray eyes that used to shine silver when she danced, lips pressed into a thin line. She looks haunted. She looks broken. She is broken. As the sun begins to set, painting the misty sky in shades of amber and blood, Sable forces herself to begin the long walk to the village. Every step sends a dull ache up her left leg. She uses a walking stick now, a gnarled piece of oak she found in the forest. It helps with balance. It also marks her as crippled, as other, as wrong. The path to the village feels longer than she remembers. The mist clings to everything, muffling sound, making the forest feel oppressive and claustrophobic. She can hear her own breathing, harsh and quick with anxiety. Her wolf, dormant for so long, stirs uneasily in her chest. Even her wolf knows this is dangerous territory. As she approaches the village, she begins to hear it, the sounds of preparation, voices calling out, the clatter of carts, the rich smells of roasting meat and baking bread. They're preparing a feast worthy of a king. The entire pack will be there, dressed in their finest, putting on a show of strength and prosperity. And she will be there too, a blight on their perfect picture. The broken Omega, the one who couldn't fulfill her sacred duty, a living reminder of failure. Sable pauses at the edge of the village, her hand tight on her walking stick, and tries to find the courage to take the next step. The Great Lodge looms ahead of her like a beast waiting to devour. It's the largest structure in the Mistwood territory, built from ancient timber and riverstone, with a roof that peaks high enough to house the sacred ceremonies. Tonight, every window glows with golden light. Smoke pours from the 3 massive chimneys, carrying with it the scent of a feast. Roasted venison, honey-glazed boar, fresh bread, spiced wine. The smell makes Sable's stomach clench with a hunger that's about more than food. She hasn't been inside the Great Lodge in 5 years, not since the night of her dissolution. The main doors stand open, warm light and noise spilling out into the twilight. Wolves stream inside in groups, dressed in their finest furs and leathers, laughing and talking with nervous excitement. They're anxious about the Alpha King's visit, yes, but there's also an undercurrent of pride. This is their chance to show their strength, to prove their pack's worth to the supreme leader of their kind. Sable approaches slowly, staying to the shadows at the edge of the clearing. She can see inside from here. The great hall is packed with bodies, the long tables laden with food and drink. The massive hearth at the far end blazes with a fire so large it could roast an entire elk. Torches line the walls, their flames dancing and casting everything in shades of amber and shadow. She sees faces she recognizes. Miriam, the healer, her silver hair braided with sacred herbs. Dax and the other border guards standing at attention near the doors. Alpha Rowan himself, a broad-shouldered man with a graying beard, standing at the high table and surveying his pack with a mixture of pride and anxiety. And there, near the center of the hall, she sees Garrett. He's aged well, she notes with a bitter pang. His copper hair is longer now, pulled back from his face. He's filled out, his shoulders broader, his presence more commanding. He stands with his arm around a woman with flowing auburn hair and a laugh that carries across the room like bells. Thalia, his new mate, a perfect Omega with perfect legs and perfect grace. Sable wants to turn and run. Her feet are already moving backward when a hand clamps down on her shoulder. Going somewhere? It's Dax again, his grip firm. I don't think so. Inside. Now. He doesn't wait for her response, just steers her toward the door with a hand between her shoulder blades. She stumbles on her bad leg, catching herself on her walking stick. A few heads turn as she enters. She sees the recognition dawn, sees eyes widen, sees mouths forming her name in whispers that spread like ripples in a pond. Sable, the broken one. What is she doing here? The heat hits her first, after years of the perpetual cold of her cottage. It's overwhelming, oppressive. The noise is worse. Dozens of conversations, laughter, the crackling of the fire, the clatter of dishes and mugs. It batters against her like waves. She feels exposed, naked despite her clothes. Every eye feels like a brand. Dax deposits her near a corner, far from the high table but still visible. Stay here. Don't make a scene. When the king arrives, you bow like everyone else. Understand? She manages a nod. He leaves her there, and she presses her back against the cold stone wall, trying to become invisible. Her walking stick is an anchor, the only solid thing in a world that feels like it's tilting beneath her feet. From her position, she can see nearly everything. The pack is in their finest. The unmated young wolves preen and posture, hoping to catch the alpha king's eye. The mated pairs stand close, their bonds visible in the way they mirror each other's movements. The elder wolves sit at the tables closest to the hearth, honored for their age and wisdom. And the omegas, there are 5 of them now, cluster together like a constellation of stars. They wear traditional ceremonial dress, flowing fabrics in shades of silver and blue that move like water with every gesture. They're beautiful, graceful, perfect. Everything she should have been. Thalia is among them, her auburn hair adorned with moonflowers, her laugh high and musical. She leans into Garrett, and he looks down at her with unmistakable pride. Sable remembers when he looked at her like that, before she fell, before she broke. Well, well, a sneering voice cuts through her thoughts. Sable turns to find Corin, one of Garrett's enforcer friends, standing far too close. His breath reeks of alcohol. Look what crawled out of the mud. Thought you'd been eaten by the mist, Sable. Would have been kinder than this. She doesn't respond. Experience has taught her that responding only makes it worse. Can't believe Rowan's making you attend. Corin continues, emboldened by her silence. You're an embarrassment. Look at you, that stick, that limp. You look like a crone, not an omega. No wonder Garrett traded up. Don't react. Don't give him the satisfaction. But her throat is tight, her eyes burning. She focuses on the stone wall at her back, cold and solid. Real. She won't cry. She won't give them that. The conversation around them has quieted. Others are listening now, enjoying the spectacle. Sable can feel their attention like ants crawling on her skin. I heard the king wants to see all the omegas dance tonight. Another voice chimes in. It's Leanna, one of the young females, her tone dripping with false sweetness. Wonder if they'll make you try, Sable. That would be entertaining. Please, Corin scoffs. She can barely walk. Watching her try to dance would be like watching a 3-legged deer try to run. Pathetic. Laughter ripples through the nearby crowd. Sable's fingernails dig into her palms. Her wolf snarls inside her chest. But there's nothing she can do. They're right. She is pathetic. She is broken. She can't defend herself because the accusations are true. Suddenly, a deep, resonant horn sounds from outside, 3 long notes that cut through the noise and freeze everyone in place. He's here, someone whispers, and the words spread like wildfire. The Alpha King is here. The Great Lodge falls into immediate, profound silence. It's eerie after the chaos of moments before. Hundreds of wolves, all holding their breath at once. Even the fire seems to quiet, its crackling reduced to whispers. Alpha Rowan moves quickly to the main entrance, his posture stiff with tension. The other high-ranking wolves follow, the beta, the lead enforcer, the elders. They form a receiving line, and the rest of the pack arranges itself instinctively by rank. Sable shrinks further into her corner, grateful for the shadows. The doors swing fully open, and the night air rushes in, carrying with it the scent of pine, snow, and something else. something wild and ancient that makes every wolf in the room tense instinctively. It's power, raw and undeniable, rolling ahead of its source like thunder before lightning. Then he enters. Valdis Stormcrown is not what Sable expected. The legends paint him as a monster, a beast barely contained in human skin. But the man who steps through the doorway is something far more unsettling. He's beautiful in the way that glaciers are beautiful, in the way that winter storms are beautiful. Deadly and perfect and utterly inhuman. He's tall, taller even than the largest wolves in the Mistwood pack, with a lean, predatory build that speaks of coiled strength. His hair is the color of new snow, not white blonde, but actually white, falling past his shoulders in a straight, heavy curtain. His skin is pale as birch bark, and his eyes. Gods, his eyes! They're the color of amber, but not the warm amber of autumn. This is the cold amber of ancient tree sap, of insects frozen mid-flight for eternity. They scan the room with a detached, calculating intensity, assessing, measuring, finding them all wanting. He wears black from throat to boot, leather and wool, simple but clearly expensive, decorated only with silver clasps in the shape of wolves' heads. A heavy fur cloak falls from his shoulders, the pelt of some massive white beast Sable doesn't recognize. At his hip hangs a sword, not ceremonial, but battle-worn, the leather grip dark with use. He is terrifying. He is magnificent, and he looks utterly, profoundly alone. Sable recognizes that look. She's seen it in her own reflection every day for 5 years. It's the look of someone who has been separate from the world for so long that they no longer remember how to be part of it. Despite his power, despite his authority, despite being surrounded by an entourage of 6 massive wolves who are clearly his personal guard, Valdis Stormcrown is isolated in a way that has nothing to do with physical distance. Alpha Rowan drops to one knee, his head bowed. Alpha King, the Mistwood Pack welcomes you. Our territory, our strength, our loyalty, all are yours to command. The rest of the pack follow suit in a wave, dropping to their knees in submission. Sable does the same, grateful that the movement hides her from view. Her bad leg protests, a sharp spike of pain shooting up her thigh, but she grits her teeth and bears it. Valdis surveys the kneeling pack with those cold, amber eyes. When he speaks, his voice is a low rumble that seems to resonate in Sable's chest. Rise! They do, a rustling of fabric and leather. Valdis moves deeper into the hall, his guards flanking him. Despite his size, he moves with a fluid grace that makes Sable's throat tight with envy. This is how alphas are supposed to move. Perfect control, perfect balance, perfect predatory power. I've heard much of the Mistwood Pack, Valdis says, his gaze traveling over them. Your territory is rich, your hunters skilled, your loyalty. He pauses, and the silence stretches uncomfortably. Your loyalty remains to be proven. Alpha Rowan's face pales slightly, but he manages a tight smile. Of course, Alpha King. We've prepared a feast in your honor, our best food, our finest entertainment. We wish only to prove our worth to you. Valdis's expression doesn't change. He allows himself to be escorted to the high table, to the seat of honor that has been prepared for him. His guards take positions around him, their expressions stone hard and watchful. As the feast begins to resume, cautiously, nervously, Sable watches the Alpha King from her shadowed corner. Everyone else is watching him too, but their gazes are filled with fear and ambition. They see his power, his authority, his ability to elevate or destroy them with a single word. But Sable sees something else. She sees the way he holds himself apart even as he sits among them. The way his responses to Alpha Rowan's attempts at conversation are brief, distant. The way his eyes constantly scan the room, not with interest, but with a kind of weary obligation, as if this is just another performance he's required to attend in an endless series of performances. He's going through the motions of leadership, of authority, but there's something missing, something hollow at his core. She recognizes it because she feels it too, that sense of being fundamentally disconnected from everything around you, of playing a role while the real you withers away in isolation. For just a moment, their eyes meet across the crowded hall. Sable freezes, pinned by that amber gaze. It lasts only a heartbeat before someone steps into his line of sight, breaking the connection. But in that brief instant, she could have sworn she saw something flicker in those cold eyes. Recognition, maybe, or curiosity. Then the moment is gone, and she's just a broken Omega in the corner again, and he's the most powerful wolf in existence, and the distance between them is infinite. The feast continues. Wine flows. Voices grow louder as fear gives way to forced celebration. And Sable presses herself against the cold stone wall, hoping desperately that she can survive this night without drawing any more attention to herself. The feast has been underway for 2 hours when Garrett rises from his seat. Sable's stomach drops. She knows that look on his face, the calculated cruelty disguised as jovial entertainment. She's seen it before. He's had too much wine. His cheeks are flushed, his movements slightly loose. Thalia sits beside him, her auburn hair catching the firelight, her expression one of amused anticipation. She knows what's coming too. "Alpha King!" Garrett calls out, his voice booming across the hall. Conversations die down. All eyes turn toward him. "If I may be so bold," Valdis regards him with those cold amber eyes, his expression unreadable. "Speak." "We've provided food and drink worthy of your station," Garrett continues, warming to his performance. "But the Mistwood Pack has always been known for more than just our hunters and fighters, our Omegas." He gestures grandly to the cluster of 5 beautifully dressed Omegas, are legendary for their sacred dances. It would be our honor to perform for you, a demonstration of the grace and power that binds our pack together. Alpha Rowan, clearly nervous but unwilling to contradict his lead enforcer in front of the king, nods quickly. "Yes, of course. Our Omegas would be honored to dance for you, Alpha King. It's tradition during such celebrations." Valdis inclines his head slightly. "Very well." The 5 Omegas rise gracefully, moving to the open space before the hearth that serves as the ceremonial dancing ground. They're already assuming their positions, their bodies aligned with ancient patterns, when Garrett's voice cuts through the hall again. "Wait!" He's smiling now, but it's the smile of a predator. "I believe we're missing someone. Aren't we, Alpha Rowan? You said every pack member was to be present tonight. Every member includes every Omega. Don't we have 6 Omegas in this pack?" Sable's blood turns to ice. Alpha Rowan looks confused. "We have 5 Omegas." "No," Garrett interrupts, his smile widening. "We have 6. We're forgetting poor Sable." He turns, his eyes finding her in the shadows with unerring accuracy. There she is, hiding in the corner. Come now, Sable. Don't be shy. The Alpha King wants to see all our Omegas dance. The hall erupts in uncomfortable murmurs. Sable sees pity on some faces, malicious glee on others. Thalia is covering her mouth, her shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. Garrett, Alpha Rowan says quietly, a note of warning in his voice. That's not necessary. But Alpha, Garrett says, his tone dripping with false innocence. The king asked to see our Omegas. Sable is an Omega. Technically. Would you have us lie to the Alpha King by omission? I'm sure he wants to assess all our pack's strengths. The pause before strengths is deliberate, venomous. Valdis's gaze has shifted to Sable now, along with everyone else's. She feels like an insect pinned to a board. Her walking stick trembles in her grip. I don't... She starts, her voice barely audible. I can't. Can't. Corin chimes in from across the hall, his voice loud and mocking. Come now, Sable. Are you refusing a direct request made in front of the Alpha King? That sounds like disrespect to me. It would be educational, Thalia adds, her sweet voice carrying clearly. For the king to see all types of Omegas in our pack. The functional ones and the broken ones. The cruelty is breathtaking. Sable's hands are shaking, her vision narrows to a tunnel. She can see Garrett watching her, drinking in her humiliation like fine wine. This is his revenge for her existence, for daring to still be part of his pack after he discarded her. Dance for us, Sable, he says, his voice carrying the authority of a senior enforcer. Show the Alpha King what an Omega without her gift looks like. Alpha Rowan looks deeply uncomfortable, but doesn't intervene. He can't, not without appearing weak in front of the king. The other wolves are silent, watching with a mixture of horror and fascination. This is a public execution, and they're all witnesses. Sable looks toward the doors, calculating if she could run. But Dax and the other border guards are there, blocking any escape. And running would be tantamount to desertion, punishable by death. She's trapped. Slowly, painfully, she pushes away from the wall. Her walking stick taps against the stone floor with each step, a rhythmic condemnation. The crowd parts before her like she's diseased, creating a pathway to the dancing ground. She stops at the edge of the space where the other 5 Omegas stand in perfect formation. They won't look at her. Even they're ashamed to be associated with her failure. Well, Garrett prompts. We're waiting. Sable looks out at the sea of faces. Some are openly laughing now. Others look away, unable to watch. She finds Valdis at the high table, and his expression gives away nothing. Those amber eyes are fixed on her with an intensity that makes her skin prickle. She thinks about refusing, about accepting death over this final humiliation. But survival is a stubborn thing. Her hands release the walking stick. It clatters to the floor, impossibly loud in the quiet hall. Without its support, she sways slightly. Her bad leg throbs in protest. She can't balance properly, can't assume any of the traditional starting positions. The sacred dances require perfect symmetry, perfect balance. She has neither. Somewhere in the crowd, someone snickers. Sable closes her eyes. She doesn't want to see their faces anymore. Doesn't want to see Garrett's satisfaction, or Thalia's contempt, or the Alpha King's cold assessment. If this is to be her final humiliation, let it be over quickly. The drums haven't even started. Traditional Omega dances are performed to rhythmic drumming, but she can't wait, can't stand here a moment longer being stared at. So she moves. For the first 3 heartbeats, it's exactly as bad as they expected. Sable's bad leg buckles slightly as she tries to shift her weight. Her arms, raised in what should be a graceful opening gesture, shake with the effort of balance. She stumbles, catches herself, and hears the sharp intake of breath from the crowd. It's pity mixed with satisfaction. See? She's broken. This is painful to watch. Garrett's laugh cuts through the silence. Perhaps we should spare the king this. But something is happening. Something Sable doesn't understand. She's given up trying to perform the traditional movements. Her body can't do them. The precise turns, the symmetrical poses, the fluid transitions. So instead, she surrenders to the pain. She lets the limp become part of the movement. She lets the trembling become deliberate. She lets the wrongness of her body tell its own story. Her bad leg drags as she pivots, but instead of hiding it, she makes it a stroke across the floor, a visual representation of weight and burden. Her arms, which shake when she tries to hold them steady, instead flutter like broken wings. She's not dancing the sacred forms. She's dancing something else entirely. The dance of injury, of survival, of 5 years of lonely nights in a leaking cottage. She's dancing her pain, and it's devastating. The laughter dies in the hall. The silence that replaces it is different from before. Not awkward, but transfixed. Sable, her eyes still closed, doesn't notice. She's lost somewhere inside herself, in a place where the shame has burned away to something rawer. She stops trying to be what she was and allows herself to be what she is. Her movements are asymmetrical, imperfect, strange. Where the traditional Omega dances are about harmony and balance, hers is about imbalance, about struggling, about the terrible beauty of something broken that refuses to die. She falls, actually falls, to one knee, and instead of scrambling up in embarrassment, she makes it part of the narrative. She rises slowly, painfully, the way she's risen every morning for 5 years. She reaches toward the ceiling with trembling hands, not in graceful supplication, but in desperate yearning for something forever out of reach. The other Omega's dances speak of unity and strength. Sable's speaks of isolation and endurance. There's no music, but she can hear rhythm anyway. The rhythm of her own heartbeat, her own breathing, the whisper of her dress against the stone floor. She spins, and the spin is lopsided, off-center, but somehow that makes it more powerful. She's a broken compass, pointing toward something that exists only in the geography of loss. She doesn't realize she's crying until she tastes salt. The tears stream down her face, but she doesn't stop moving. She can't stop. Something has cracked open inside her, 5 years of buried grief pouring out through her imperfect body. This isn't performance. This is exorcism. And then, at the peak of a movement, reaching up with both arms, her bad leg extended behind her in a twisted version of a traditional pose, she feels it. The bond. It hits her like lightning, like falling off a cliff, like dying and being born in the same instant. A golden thread, brilliant and undeniable, snaps into place in her chest, connecting her to. Her eyes fly open. Valdis Stormcrown is standing. The Alpha King has risen from his seat at the high table, his chair knocked backward in his haste. His face, previously a mask of cold indifference, is transformed. His eyes have gone wide, the amber burning like flames. His mouth is slightly open in shock. His hands grip the edge of the table so hard the wood creaks. He's staring at Sable like he's seeing the sun for the first time. And she can feel him. Gods, she can feel him. His shock, his disbelief, his desperate, aching recognition. The golden thread between them hums with energy, growing stronger with every passing second. It's a mate bond. The ancient, undeniable bond that marks two souls as destined for each other. But that's impossible. Mate bonds are rare, precious things, and they don't happen to broken omegas and alpha kings who are separated by infinite chasms of power and status. Yet it's there, real, undeniable. Sable stands frozen mid-movement, her arms still raised, tears still wet on her cheeks. She's vaguely aware that she's stopped dancing, that the hall is dead silent, that everyone is staring not at her anymore, but at the Alpha King. Valdez takes a step forward, then another. He moves like a sleepwalker, like a man under a spell. His guards move to intercept him, confused, but he waves them off without looking. His eyes never leave Sable. "You!" he says, and his voice is rough, stripped of its cold authority. "You!" He crosses the space between them in long strides. The crowd scrambles to get out of his way. When he reaches her, he stops an arm's length away, as if afraid that touching her might prove she isn't real. "How?" He cuts himself off, visibly struggling for control. His hand comes up, trembling slightly, reaching toward her face. "Your dance. What you were doing. I felt..." His voice cracks. "I've searched for 200 years, 200 years, and you were here, hidden in the mist, dancing broken things." Sable can't speak, can barely breathe. The bond is singing between them, a frequency that resonates in her bones. Valdez's hand finally makes contact, his fingers brushing her cheek with a gentleness that seems impossible from such a powerful creature. His touch is warm, electric. The bond flares brighter. "Mate!" He breathes, and the word is a prayer, a curse, a revelation. "You're my mate!" The hall erupts into chaos. The noise is deafening, hundreds of wolves shouting at once, shock, disbelief, confusion. But Sable can barely hear them. The bond is roaring in her ears like a river, drowning out everything except the man standing before her. Valdez's hand is still on her cheek, his amber eyes searching her face with an intensity that should terrify her, but doesn't. She can feel his emotions through the bond now, a torrent of them, overwhelming in their complexity. Relief, joy, disbelief. And underneath it all, a loneliness so profound it makes her chest ache. He's been alone for so long, so impossibly long. "I don't understand," she whispers, finding her voice. "This can't be. I'm nobody. I'm broken." "No." The word comes out fierce, almost angry. His other hand comes up to cup her face between his palms. "No, you are everything. You are the piece of me that's been missing for 2 centuries. I felt it the moment you began to dance. The void in my chest. It's gone. For the first time in my existence, I am whole." Behind them, Alpha Rowan has found his voice. "Alpha King, I don't understand what's happening." Valdez doesn't turn around, doesn't take his eyes off Sable. "The curse," he says, his voice carrying clearly despite its softness. The curse that has plagued my bloodline for generations. My ancestor, the first Alpha King, made a pact with the old gods for ultimate power. In exchange, his soul was split. Every king in my line is born incomplete, searching for the other half. Without our mate, we're only half alive. Strong, yes, powerful, but fundamentally hollow. He traces his thumb along Sable's cheekbone, his touch reverent. I've searched every pack, every territory, listened to thousands of Omegas sing, watched hundreds dance. None of them called to me. I began to believe I was the generation that would fail, that I would die unmated, and my line would end. His voice drops lower, meant only for her, and then you, moving like a wounded bird that refuses to stop flying, dancing the language of pain I've carried my entire life. You weren't performing for them. You were speaking directly to my soul. Sable's legs are trembling. The adrenaline that carried her through the dance is fading, leaving her shaky and overwhelmed. Valdis seems to sense this because his arms slip around her waist, supporting her weight as if she weighs nothing. The bond between them strengthens with the contact, becoming a living thing that winds through her chest and into his. She can feel it settling, taking root, becoming permanent. This is real. This is happening. But she forces herself to think through the chaos in her mind. But I'm not. My leg. I can't dance properly. I can't fulfill an Omega's duties. Your leg, Valdis says. And now there is anger in his voice, but it's not directed at her. His gaze shifts finally to take in the hall full of staring wolves. His eyes find Garrett with laser precision. You rejected her because of her leg? Garrett has gone the color of old snow. He's backed up several steps, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. She couldn't perform the sacred dances. She couldn't. She just did. Valdis's voice is as cold as his eyes. She performed the most sacred dance I've ever witnessed. The dance of survival. The dance of a soul that refused to break even when everything conspired to break it. The temperature in the hall seems to drop 10 degrees. And you cast her aside. You performed a rite of dissolution on your true mate because she had a limp. I didn't know she was. I couldn't have known. Garrett is sweating now, despite the sudden cold. You should have known that an Omega's worth isn't measured by perfect pirouettes. Valdis snarls. You should have known that true strength isn't the absence of injury, but the refusal to surrender to it. You should have known. He cuts himself off, visibly fighting for control. When he speaks again, his voice is dangerously soft. But you didn't. Instead, you humiliated her. You forced her to dance tonight to shame her, to punish her for the crime of existing after you discarded her. The silence in the hall is absolute. No one dares to breathe. Valdis looks down at Sable again, and his expression transforms. The fury melts away, replaced by something tender and fierce. He severed your bond? She nods, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Then let me make this clear to everyone present. Valdis raises his voice, making sure every wolf in the hall can hear. The bond between Garrett and Sable was false, a placeholder. Garrett was never her true mate. I am. The bond you feel now, Sable, can you feel it? She nods again. It's impossible not to feel it. The golden thread is brilliant, unbreakable, singing with rightness. That is a true mate bond, Valdis announces. Blessed by the old gods themselves, unbreakable by any rite or ritual. Sable is my destined mate, my Luna, my queen, and anyone who has harmed her has harmed me. His gaze sweeps the hall, and wolves drop their eyes immediately, terrified. His attention settles on Garrett, on Thalia standing beside him, looking like she might faint, on Corin and the others who mocked Sable earlier. "You will answer for this," Valdis says quietly. "Not now. Not tonight. But you will answer." He turns back to Sable, and his expression softens again. "Can you walk, or should I carry you?" What? "We're leaving," he says simply. "You're not spending another moment in this place that caused you such pain. My territory is in the northern mountains. It's your home now. Our home. But I don't have anything. My cottage." "Burn it," Valdis says flatly. "You'll never go back there. Anything you need, I'll provide. Anything you want, I'll give you. You'll never be cold again, never be hungry, never be alone." His voice cracks slightly on the last word. "Neither of us will be alone ever again." Sable looks around the hall, at the sea of shocked faces, at Garrett, whose expression has gone from terror to something like dawning horror as he realizes what he's lost, at Alpha Rowan, who looks like he's aged 10 years in 10 minutes, at the 5 perfect Omegas who stand frozen in their formation, their perfect beauty suddenly meaningless in the face of what she's just been revealed to be. Queen, Luna, the Alpha King's destined mate. It's absurd, impossible, a fairy tale. But the bond doesn't lie. And when she looks back at Valdis, at the desperate hope in his ancient eyes, she knows it's true. "Yes," she whispers. "Take me home." Valdis sweeps his fur cloak from his shoulders and wraps it around Sable, the massive white pelt engulfing her smaller frame. The gesture is possessive, protective, and unmistakably final. She's his now, marked by his scent and his claim. But before they leave, he turns back to face Alpha Rowan. His voice, when he speaks, carries the full weight of his authority. Not just an alpha, but the Alpha King, supreme leader of all wolf packs in the Northern Territories. "Alpha Rowan of the Mistwood Pack, you failed in your most fundamental duty." Rowan drops to one knee immediately, his head bowed. "Alpha King, I dash. You allowed one of your Omegas to live in squalor for 5 years. Valdis continues, his voice cutting. You permitted your pack members to abuse and humiliate her. You stood by tonight while your lead enforcer orchestrated her public degradation. And most damningly, you did nothing when Garrett performed a false rite of dissolution, severing a bond that had no right to be severed because it was never meant to exist in the first place. I didn't know, Rowan starts. You should have. Valdis's amber eyes are pitiless. An alpha's duty is to every member of his pack, not just the strong ones, not just the perfect ones, every single member. You failed Sable. You failed your Omega. And in doing so, you failed me. The words land like hammer blows. The other wolves in the hall are utterly silent, barely daring to breathe. The Alpha King's judgment is absolute. There's no appeal, no argument. Your pack will be assessed, Valdis declares. I'm sending my personal overseer to remain here for 1 full year. He will observe how you treat your most vulnerable members, how you handle your Omegas, your elderly, your injured. If I receive even one report of cruelty, of neglect, of the kind of abuse Sable suffered, he lets the threat hang in the air, unfinished but clear. Rowan's face has gone gray. Yes, Alpha King, we will do better. I swear it. See that you do? Valdis's gaze shifts to Garrett, who flinches as if struck. As for you, enforcer, you performed a rite of dissolution on my mate. Do you understand the magnitude of that offense? Garrett's mouth opens and closes soundlessly. Thalia has actually backed away from him, distancing herself from the consequences about to fall. In the old laws, Valdis says, his voice dropping to a dangerous purr, the punishment for severing a true mate bond is death. Slow death, painful death, death that serves as a warning to anyone who might consider such an atrocity. Garrett collapses to his knees, his face crumbling. Please, I didn't know. I couldn't have known she was... You didn't know because you never bothered to look past her injury, Valdis snarls. You saw a broken leg and decided that made her worthless. You felt no bond with her, Garrett, because she was never meant to be yours. But you should have honored her anyway, should have protected her. Instead, you cast her out like garbage, and then... His voice rises. Then you dared to humiliate her again tonight for your own amusement. Sable feels Valdis's rage through the bond, hot and terrible. She can sense how much he wants to kill Garrett, how his wolf is demanding blood for the suffering his mate endured. But she can also feel his control, iron hard, keeping the beast chained. He's waiting for something, waiting for dash. Sable. He turns to her, and his eyes have softened again. He hurt you, rejected you, shamed you. By rights, his life is forfeit, but you're the one who suffered, so you're the one who decides. What would you have me do with him? Every eye in the hall turns to her. The broken Omega given the power to destroy the man who destroyed her. Sable looks at Garrett. Really looks at him. He's terrified, trembling, tears streaming down his face. He's pathetic, and she realizes, with a clarity that's almost startling, that she feels nothing for him. Not hatred, not anger, not even satisfaction at seeing him brought low. He's just irrelevant. Let him live, she says quietly. Garrett's head jerks up, hope flaring in his eyes. But, Sable continues, her voice growing stronger. He's to be stripped of his position as lead enforcer, reduced in rank to the lowest position in the pack. He'll understand what it feels like to be at the bottom, to be looked down upon, to be forgotten. She takes a breath, feeling Valdis's pride through the bond. And the rite of dissolution he performed on me, let it be known throughout every pack that it was false, that he severed a bond that didn't exist, and in doing so, left the true mate bond free to form. He didn't reject me. He simply failed to be what he never could have been. The distinction is important. It reframes the narrative. Garrett didn't cast aside the Alpha King's mate. He was simply never her mate to begin with. He's not a villain in her story anymore. He's just a footnote, a minor character who misunderstood his role. As for Thalia, Sable looks at the auburn-haired Omega, who shrinks under her gaze. She's not responsible for Garrett's choices. Let her be. Valdis nods slowly. Wise, he murmurs. Merciful. These are the qualities of a true Luna. He addresses the hall again, his voice ringing with authority. You heard your queen. Garrett, you're demoted. Report to Alpha Rowan tomorrow to receive your new assignments. Consider yourself fortunate that Sable has more grace than you deserve." He turns to Corin and the others who participated in mocking Sable. "As for the rest of you, I'll remember your faces. I'll remember your cruelty. And if I ever hear that you've treated anyone in your pack the way you treated her, I'll return. And I won't be as merciful as she is." The threat hangs in the air. No one doubts he means every word. Valdis gathers Sable closer, supporting her weight. "We're done here," he says to his guards. "Prepare to depart." As they move toward the doors, Sable catches one last glimpse of Garrett. He's still on his knees, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Thalia stands apart from him, her expression calculating, already trying to determine how to distance herself from his fall from grace. Sable feels a flicker of pity, just a flicker. Then it's gone. She leans into Valdis's warmth, into the solid strength of the mate bond, and doesn't look back. The journey to the northern mountains takes 3 days, but Sable barely registers the passage of time. She rides in a specially made litter, cushioned with furs and protected from the wind, but Valdis spends most of the journey walking beside her, his hand never far from hers. The mate bond hums between them constantly, a living warmth in her chest. When they finally arrive at Icefang Hold, Sable is struck speechless. The fortress rises from the mountainside like it grew there naturally, carved from the same white stone as the peaks around it. It's enormous, a sprawling complex of towers and halls that seems to go on forever. But it's not cold or forbidding. Golden light spills from countless windows, and she can see gardens, actual gardens at this altitude, protected by glass structures that catch and hold the sun's warmth. "Home," Valdis says simply, watching her face. "Our home now." The pack that greets them is nothing like the Mistwood wolves. These northern wolves are larger, their features sharper, their eyes holding the wisdom of ancient bloodlines. But what strikes Sable most is how they look at Valdis, not with fear, but with genuine reverence and affection. And when he introduces her as their Luna, as his true mate, they drop to one knee, not in terror, but in respect. "Welcome, Luna," says an elderly woman with silver hair braided with ice crystals. "We've waited so long for you. So very long." Sable is given chambers that are larger than the entire village square in Mistwood. The bed is massive, piled with furs and silks. There's a bathing room with hot water piped in from volcanic springs deep in the mountain. There are clothes, beautiful dresses in jewel tones, soft leather boots, fur-lined cloaks. There are servants who treat her with deference and warmth, who don't stare at her limp, who don't whisper behind their hands. It's overwhelming. For the first 3 days, Sable barely leaves her chambers. She's not quite a prisoner. Valdis has made it clear she's free to go anywhere, do anything. But she's paralyzed by the sheer impossibility of her new life. How does a hermit Omega become a queen? How does someone who lived in a leaking cottage adjust to being served by dozens of attendants? Valdis is patient. He doesn't push. He comes to her chambers each evening, sits with her by the fire, and just talks. He tells her about his life, about the loneliness of being king, about the weight of living for 2 centuries, watching everyone you care about age and die while you remain unchanged. "I've had friends," he says one night, staring into the flames. "Allies, People I respected, but never equals, never someone who understood what it feels like to carry this emptiness until you. Sable, curled in a chair across from him, wrapped in furs, finds her voice. You felt empty too? Always. His amber eyes meet hers. The curse doesn't just split the soul, it leaves a void. Everything I've accomplished, every pack I've united, every battle I've won, it all felt hollow. Like I was going through the motions of being alive without actually living. I thought that's just what existence was. A long, cold march toward an eventual end. That's exactly... Sable's breath catches. That's exactly how I felt. After Garrett, after they pushed me out, I wasn't living, I was just persisting. Day after day in that cottage, alone with the cold and the rain, wondering what the point was. Valdis leans forward, his elbows on his knees. The point was that you survived long enough for me to find you, for our bond to form. The old gods don't make mistakes, Sable. Your injury, your rejection, your suffering. I'm not going to insult you by saying they were gifts. They were terrible, and they should never have happened. But they made you who you are. They gave you the strength to dance that dance, to speak the language of pain that only I could understand. Tears slip down Sable's cheeks. I thought I was broken. You were broken, Valdis says gently. But so was I. And somehow, our broken pieces fit together perfectly. That night, he asked permission to sleep beside her, not to claim her, not to consummate the bond, but just to be close. She agrees, and they lie together in the massive bed, the mate bond humming contentedly between them. Sable falls asleep with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and for the first time in 5 years, she doesn't dream of falling. The healing is gradual. Valdis brings her books from his extensive library. He shows her the glass gardens where mountain flowers bloom year-round. He introduces her to his most trusted advisors, who treat her with genuine respect. He has the royal physician examine her leg, not to fix it, but to help manage the pain. Special salves that reduce inflammation, gentle exercises that improve her mobility, a new walking stick carved from ironwood, balanced perfectly for her height and gait. I don't want to change you, he tells her. I want to help you be the best version of yourself. Scars and all. Slowly, Sable begins to believe him, begins to believe that she might actually belong here, that this isn't a dream that will shatter when she wakes. One evening, about a month after her arrival, Valdis finds her in the glass garden. She's been spending more time here, learning the names of the flowers, finding peace in the quiet beauty of growing things. There's something I need to tell you, he says, sitting beside her on a stone bench. About the mate bond. About us. Sable's heart clenches. What is it? The curse, the split soul. It's why I've lived so long, why I'm so powerful. But it's also why I've been so incomplete. The old gods' pact specified that the king and his mate would be born generations apart, that he would search for her across time. When the bond forms, when I finally find my true mate, the curse is fulfilled. And, Sable prompts, sensing there's more. And I'll start aging normally again. I'll still be stronger than average, still long-lived, but not immortal, not eternal. When the bond completes, when we fully claim each other, I become mortal. He takes her hand. I wanted you to know. Wanted you to understand what you're accepting. I'll have maybe another century, if we're lucky. Not forever. Sable stares at him. You're telling me that by being with me, you'll die? Eventually, yes. And you're okay with this? Valdis laughs, the sound rich and genuine. Okay with it? Sable, I've been waiting 200 years to be mortal. To have a life that means something because it has an end. To have someone worth growing old with. You're not taking years from me. You're giving me a life worth living. He cups her face in his hands, his amber eyes blazing with intensity. I would trade 1,000 years of hollow existence for a single year truly alive with you. Sable realizes she's crying again. But these are different tears than the ones she shed in that cold cottage. These are tears of release, of acceptance, of finally understanding that she's not broken. She's exactly what she's supposed to be. I love you, she whispers. Is that too soon? We've only known each other a month. The bond knew the moment you danced, Valdis says, smiling. Everything else is just our minds catching up to what our souls already understood. And yes, Sable, I love you too. I've loved you since before I met you. I've been searching for you my entire life. He kisses her then, gentle and deep, and the mate bond flares brilliant gold between them. Not complete yet. That will come later when they're both ready, but growing stronger every day. 4 months later, duty calls Valdis back to the Southern Territories for the midwinter assessments. The Mistwood Pack is among those scheduled for evaluation. His overseer has been sending regular reports, mostly positive, with notes that Alpha Rowan has been making genuine efforts to address the failures Valdis identified. When Valdis tells Sable where he's going, she's silent for a long moment. They're in their shared chambers, the fire crackling warmly. She's been learning to use her new walking stick, finding that the better balance actually allows her to move more freely than before. I want to go with you, she says finally. Valdis looks up sharply. You don't have to. I know that place holds nothing but pain for you. I can handle the assessment alone. I know I don't have to. Sable meets his gaze steadily. But I want to. I need to. If I avoid it forever, it becomes this shadow I'm running from. A place that still has power over me. I need to go back and face it. Not as the broken Omega they discarded, but as who I am now. Pride radiates through the mate bond. Valdis crosses to her, taking her hands. Are you sure? Yes, and she is. The fear is there. She won't pretend it isn't, but it's no longer paralyzing. She's stronger now, not because her leg has healed. It hasn't, not really, but because she's healed. The part of her that was broken wasn't her body. It was her belief in her own worth. She doesn't need their validation anymore. But she does need closure. The journey south is different this time. She rides beside Valdis on a gentle mare bred for stability, not in a hidden litter. She wears a dress of deep sapphire blue that marks her clearly as Luna, with Valdis's wolf emblem embroidered in silver thread across the bodice. Her hair is braided with winter roses from the glass garden. She looks like what she is, a queen. When they arrive at Mistwood territory, the entire pack is assembled outside the village, just as Valdis commanded. But this time, they're not there out of curiosity or to impress. They're there because their Luna has returned. and their future depends on how they receive her. Alpha Rowan looks older, grayer. When Sable dismounts, smoothly, with only minimal reliance on her walking stick, he drops to one knee immediately. Luna Sable, we are honored by your return. Please, his voice cracks slightly. Please know that we have changed. We've learned from our failures. You should never have been treated as you were. The fault is mine, and I carry that shame. Sable looks at the assembled pack. She sees fear on many faces, but also genuine remorse on some. The Omegas are there, including Thalia, all bowing deeply. The elders have tears in their eyes. Even some of the warriors who laughed at her that night look ashamed. Stand, Sable says, her voice carrying clearly. All of you, stand. They rise slowly, hesitantly. I'm not here for revenge, Sable continues. I'm here because this is where I'm from. These woods raised me. This pack, for all its faults, it was my home for 17 years. I don't forget that. She moves through the crowd, her walking stick tapping against the frozen ground. They part before her like water. She stops in front of Miriam, the healer, who is openly weeping. You did your best with my leg, Sable says gently. I never blamed you for the outcome. I should have done more, Miriam chokes out. Should have fought harder to keep them from treating you so cruelly. You couldn't have changed anything, Sable says. The change had to come from them and from me. She moves on, stopping before the 5 Omegas. They're trembling, afraid to meet her eyes. I don't blame you, either, she tells them. You were kind to me before. After, you were silent. But silence isn't the same as cruelty. I understand why you couldn't defend me. You had your own positions to protect. One of them, Celine, who was always the gentlest, finally looks up. We're so sorry, Luna. We should have been braver. Maybe, Sable acknowledges. Or maybe you were as trapped in the pack's expectations as I was. Either way, it's past. I release you from any guilt. Then she sees him. Garrett, he stands at the very back of the crowd, as far from the center as possible. His copper hair is duller now, his shoulders hunched. He's wearing the rough clothes of a common pack member, his enforcer's leathers long since stripped away. He looks like he's aged 10 years and 4 months. Beside him stands Thalia, but there's distance between them now. No touching, no closeness. Their bond, whatever it was, has clearly frayed. Sable walks toward him. Valdis stays close, a silent, protective presence. But he doesn't interfere. The crowd holds its breath. When she stops in front of Garrett, he can't meet her eyes. Look at me, Sable says quietly. He does, slowly. His green eyes are haunted, filled with regret so deep it's almost tangible. I forgive you, Sable says simply. Garrett's face crumples. Don't. Please. I don't deserve. No, she interrupts. You don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. I forgive you because holding on to anger would poison me, not you. I forgive you because the life I have now is so much better than anything I could have had with you. I forgive you because you're irrelevant to my happiness. The last words land with quiet finality. Not cruel, just true. She studies him for a moment longer. This man who once meant everything to her, and feels nothing but distant pity. I hope you learn from this, she says. I hope you become better. But whether you do or not, it's no longer my concern. She turns away from him, back to Valdis, who is watching her with unmistakable pride and love. She slips her hand into his, feeling the warmth of the mate bond surge between them. I'm ready to go home now, she tells him. As you wish, my love, Valdis murmurs. They walk back toward their horses together, leaving Garrett and the rest of the pack behind. Sable doesn't look back, not once. She's done with this place, not because she's running from it, but because she's grown beyond it. The broken Omega who left here 4 months ago is gone. In her place stands Luna Sable's storm crown, and she has far more important things to do than dwell on the past. 6 months later, Sable stands on the highest balcony of Icefang Hold, looking out over the northern mountains. The sun is setting, painting the snow-covered peaks in shades of rose gold and lavender. The air is cold, but not bitter, the kind of crisp cold that makes you feel alive rather than frozen. Behind her, through the glass doors, she can hear the sounds of the evening feast. Laughter, music, the warm rumble of conversation. The northern pack is celebrating the spring equinox, and she should be inside with them. She will be in a moment. But first, she needs this, a moment of quiet reflection. She thinks about the cottage in the Mistwood Hollows, about the leaking roof and the cold that never left, and the loneliness that was her only companion. About the girl who lived there, who believed she was worthless because her body didn't work the way it was supposed to. That girl's gone. Not erased, but transformed. The scars are still there, on her leg, on her heart. But they're part of her story now, not the end of it. She hears the glass doors open and knows without looking that it's Valdis. The mate bond always tells her when he's near, a warm pulse in her chest that says, home, safe, whole. He comes to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. She leans into him, feeling his warmth seep through the layers of her clothes. His chin rests on her shoulder, his breath warm against her ear. What are you thinking about? He asks softly. Everything, she says. Nothing. How strange it is that the thing I thought would destroy me, my injury, my inability to dance properly, was actually the key to finding you, to finding this life. The old gods work in mysterious ways, Valdis murmurs. They break us in exactly the right places so that we can fit together. Sable turns in his arms to face him. His amber eyes are soft in the fading light, his ancient, powerful face gentle when he looks at her. Do you regret it? She asks. Trading immortality for mortality? For me? Not for a single second. He tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. I've lived more in the past 6 months with you than I did in 2 centuries alone. Every moment has color now, has meaning, has joy. His thumb traces her cheekbone. You gave me life, Sable. Real life. How could I possibly regret that? She stretches up to kiss him, pouring all her love and gratitude and wonder into it. The mate bond flares brilliant between them, complete now, unbreakable. When they pull apart, Valdis rests his forehead against hers. Besides, he says with a smile. We have years ahead of us. Decades, maybe a full century if we're lucky. What should we do with all that time? Live, Sable says simply. Just live. Together. Together, he echoes, and the word is a promise, a vow, a benediction. They stand there for a while longer, wrapped in each other and the growing darkness, watching the stars begin to emerge in the vast northern sky. The mountains stretch out before them, beautiful and harsh and eternal. Sable thinks about the journey that brought her here, about falling off a cliff and shattering her leg, about being rejected and cast out, about 5 years of isolation and pain, about being forced to dance when she could barely walk, and discovering that her broken movement was the exact frequency needed to call a king across a continent. Her flaw was never a flaw. It was a feature waiting for the right context. Come on, Valdis says eventually, pressing a kiss to her temple. Our pack is waiting. They'll be wondering where their Luna has disappeared to. Let them wonder a moment longer, Sable says, but she's smiling. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. They turn together, hands linked, and walk back into the warmth and light of the feast, back into the noise and laughter and belonging, back into a life that once seemed impossible but now feels as natural as breathing. The doors close behind them, shutting out the cold. And Sable Stormcrown, who once believed she was too broken to be loved, steps into her future with the certainty of a woman who has finally come home.